So let's get into this model that I was talking about, those 6 key components. What I'd like to do is just do high level first. We'll go around and make sure you understand and get your head around what those 6 key components are and what the relevance is for them. The first component is the vision component. And I have to tell you, I've never met a business owner or a CEO who doesn't have a vision. The problem is not that. The problem usually is too many visions. All of you are probably either part of management teams or have been part of management teams, and I'll bet you that if I took you and put you in separate rooms and said, what's the vision, Freddie? You'd have a great idea of what the vision is, and then ask your colleague what a vision was and someone else. We would find that we probably have variations. So the key here is to get real clear about where the business is going and how it's going to get there, to get complete alignment. And when we work with companies, we start with the leadership team. It all starts at the leadership level, 100% on the same page of where the business is going and how it's going to get there. The second component is the people component. Now, I think we all would agree that it takes great people to be able to achieve great vision. Here's the discovery. The definition of great people, it's different for every organization. The definition of great people is different for every organization. So your job when working with something like this is to define what great people mean for your organization. And that's what we're going to talk about. How do you define that? And once you define it, you're attracting the great people. And maybe as important, you're repelling the wrong people. And that's how you get your organization going to where it needs to go quicker. The third component is the data component. Now, the data is really taking the subjective, the opinions, the egos out of running the business and really boiling it down to good, hard numbers. And when I talk about the numbers, I'm talking about numbers that will predict results, not numbers that are giving you history, numbers that will predict your future results. So just imagine a company that's very strong in the vision component, attracting great people, knows what great people are and attracting great people, and has the data to help let them know whether they're on track. If you can imagine that, what would be a normal occurrence is those obstacles, those barriers, those challenges between where you are and reaching your vision, they're going to start to surface. And that's our fourth component we call issues. Great, successful companies aren't lacking issues. They're just good at identifying them and knocking them down and getting through them. And that's the issues component. The fifth component is the process component, probably the weakest part for most entrepreneurial businesses because what? It's in our head. But this is really the roadmap for how you do what you do so well and getting that consistency into your business that your customers can count on and even your employees can count on. So there's the process component. And the last component is the traction component. This is the discipline, the accountability, sort of that day-to-day execution that really gets you to your vision. And in this model, it's not a coincidence that we have vision on top and traction on bottom because vision without traction is hallucination. You can have the best set plans and get everybody motivated, but if you don't have the execution to get it there, you're just going to get frustrated. So that's the model that we're going to talk about. And what I'd like to go into now is sort of deeper into bringing up some of these tools. And by the way, some of you have seen are doing it. Just write on your workbooks. These are your workbooks. Do what you want with them. So we're going to start with the vision component. We're going to spend a little more time on the vision component than others. But it starts with a tool that is called the Vision Traction Organizer. It's on page 4 and 5 of your book. And it starts with what we call answering the 8 questions. Remember I talked about the alignment, 100% alignment, starting with the leadership team, everybody being on the same page. Well, there are 8 sections in here, and we call them sort of 8 questions. And to the degree that you can get your team 100% on the same page with the answer to these questions, you are going to have a strong, strong vision. And you'll notice this vision and traction. The first page is 5 sections that are vision. Second page is 3 sections that really brings it to traction. But those 8 questions, let's talk about it a little bit. That first side, we'll go through it. But the first item there is core values. Everybody's heard core value. Everybody thinks about core values. Here's what core values mean to us. They are who you are as an organization. You know, we all have our own personality. Core values simply are who you are as an organization and calling it out. There's no good, there's no bad, it's just who you are. And the better you can get at that directly ties into your ability to attract great people. It's all about the right people, and we'll get into that in a moment. So since we're in the flying analogy, I thought what I'd do, I actually did a little research, and I researched 2 major airlines and found their core values. And I'd like to see if you know whose core values these are. Take a look at this, and when you get a thought about who you think it might be, just spit it out. Wow, this is a very smart group. Interesting that everybody got that. How about the second one? I don't hear anything. Any suggestions? On that slide. What airline is this? Virgin? Virgin? Of course it's Delta. Everybody knows that's Delta.
You're kidding me.
Here's the point. Here's the point. This is what the point that I think is important to take. Everybody knew Southwest. Here's the point. When you get your core values right, not only will your employees be able to look at it and say, that's us, but your customers will. And when you saw that, first of all, it was very short, very simple, and it was very Southwestish, if that's a word. But the Delta one, I am not saying this is not Delta's and this is not true, but as consumers, it wasn't obvious to us. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. So core values are very important in attracting the right people. We'll go through these others very quickly. Core focus. Core focus is very important because it basically becomes your filtering mechanism. Let's face it, no organization, especially growing entrepreneurial organizations, has unlimited resources. We need to stay true to our resources and be clear about where we should be in the market and where we should not be. Core focus defines that, starting with why you do what you do, your purpose, cause, or passion, one of those. There's some reason behind it, maybe starting with the founder, and then your niche. What do you do great? And anytime some new potential thing comes to mind, we call it the shiny stuff, it really looks sexy out there, you need to evaluate it through the lens of your core focus. Do we belong there? Will we be pulling resources off where we shouldn't? Are we staying true to what we do best? That's core focus. Next one's 10-year target. We call it a 10-year target because that's typically the time frame with clients, but it could be anywhere from 5 to 25 years. What is that big goal? Jim Collins refers to that as the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. What is it that's really out there that's motivating you and your employees? That's the 10-year target. You put it out there and say, in 10 years, this is what it's going to look like. The fourth section is the marketing strategy. Notice this isn't a 50-page marketing plan. This is a high-level executive look at just a few things. Who's your list? The target list. Who are your potential clients? Usually defined by demographics, geographics, and psychographics. I have to tell you, the demographics and geographics are usually pretty straightforward. The psychographics are a little harder. How do our clients think? And that's so important because the understanding how they think will help you determine who the best clients are for you. And then the 3 uniques, it can be considered a competitive advantage. But here's the thing with the 3 uniques. Any one of your 3 uniques, maybe some or most of your competitors share. Any 2 of them together, maybe some of your competitors share. But when you combine all 3 of your uniques, it's unique to your organization for your marketplace. Every one of you in your business has 3 uniques. And the key is to identify them and to be able to market to them. And then the other 2 is proven process, helps take a little bit of the risk out of doing business with you. How do you get the results that you get for your clients? And then your guarantee if that is something that is appropriate. Then we're getting now into the 3-year picture. Now we're bringing it down to the ground. You'll notice in the 3-year picture we have a high level, we're identifying what our revenue, our profit, and our key measurables will be in 3 years. Key measurables, an example, I have a client that has several medical practices. One of their key measurables is daily patient visits. That's a measurable for their business, patient visits per day. You have measurables for you. And then you can see it in their bullet points, but basically what we're doing is, what does it look like? At this point, we want to determine, what's it look like 3 years out? What does it look like? And actually, if you were to close your eyes and read that list, you'd be able to actually see what it looks like in your business 3 years down the road, because the more we can see it, the better chance we're going to be able to achieve it. And by the way, the 3-year picture, the other value is bringing us to the other side of the page. It helps us do better 1-year planning. And so that's the other side. Same kind of metrics at the top. I won't repeat them, but the difference now in the 1-year plan is that we're identifying the main goals, usually 3 to 7 goals, most important goals that we need to get done. What are the 3 to 7 most important things that must get done this year in order to support us reaching our 1-year plan? And then the next section is called Rocks. I love this section. I think this is the magic of the system. It's a 90-day world that we create for our clients. Are you familiar with the analogy of rocks? I think some of you are, with Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey, okay, some of you are. It's simply, he makes a point. He's got a beaker, and he's got rocks, pebbles, sand, and water. And if you put in the water first, the sand in second, the pebbles third, and then try to put the rocks in, they don't fit. The rocks represent the most important things that you need to do. Rocks represent these important goals. The pebbles represent your day-to-day responsibility. The sand are any interruptions you have, and water is everything else. So if you put it in the other way, you put in the rocks in first, the pebbles, the sand, and then the water, everything fits. So the point there is, you got to do the most important things first. And notice what we've done here is, when you get into the rocks, we have a who column, because this is now where we get into the accountability. Every leader on your team represents a function in your company, and represents that in terms of what needs to be done in that function. So rocks are set at a company level and a department level, and you've got this 90-day world. So here's what I'd like you to imagine, is that you're getting together every 90 days. Every 90 days you're setting new rocks. At the end of those 90 days, when you get together, you see how you did on the previous 90 days rocks. Some were done, some weren't done. The most important thing is, what did we learn from the previous 9 days? And after you've determined what you've learned for the previous 9 days, you literally throw those 90 days out. You come up and reset for the next 90 days and say, what's the most important thing for these next 90 days? If you do that 90 days after 90 days after 90 days, quarter by quarter by quarter, you cannot help but getting to your vision, reaching that big goal quicker, because it's keeping you on target. The last section is the issues list. This is a culture. We'll talk about issues in a moment more, when it's one of the key core components. But all this is getting out of your head and getting onto paper. What are those obstacles, those barriers, those things that are in your way, those challenges? Get them out of your head, get them parked on a piece of paper, and at the right time, address them, so they don't become a bunch of just a lot of to-dos. So that's the vision side. And the second part, just see if you can, it's a little hard to see that, but the second part of this is that once you're clear about the vision, then you're sharing, you want it shared by all. So everybody in the organization, 100% strong in the vision component, would mean that if you have 40 people in your company, 40 people are on board in terms of the answers to those questions, and they see their part in making that vision come alive. So that's shared by all, answering the 8 questions. The next section is the people section, and many of you may be familiar with Jim Collins, getting the right people on the right bus. This is sort of an extension to this. The definition of great people for any organization is the right people in the right seats. So now, I said earlier, we've got to define that for your company. We have a very powerful tool called the People Analyzer. It's in your book. It's on page 7. I really can't emphasize enough how simple and powerful this tool is. So let's say we're Delta Airlines. We'll go back to Delta Airlines.